Is it a coup against Joe Biden?
It's sort of, yeah.
I think it is. I mean, look, there's a constitutional process, the 25th Amendment. If Joe Biden can't run for president, he can't serve as president. And if they want...
No. Why do they keep repeating that? How does that work? Any president who accepts being a one-term president automatically can't be a one-term president. You don't get to be a president at all unless you're willing to commit to be a two-term president. That doesn't follow even remotely. There's literally no logical connection. They're so desperate to prevent Kamala Harris from being their opponent.
To take him down because he's mentally incapable of serving, invoke the 25th Amendment. You don't get to sort of do this in the most politically beneficial way for Democrats if it's an actual...
You can't force people to invoke the 25th Amendment. Also, because a person doesn't want to run for an additional 4 years in office, that doesn't mean that they can't be president now.
Problem, they should take care of it in the appropriate way.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of saying assaulting democracy without actually saying it, Elizabeth Pipko. Does he have a point?
He 100% has a point. Look.
No, he really doesn't. Also, wow, you look scary. She looks like the theoretical ghost of the girl from Fight Club, man. Jesus Christ. Doesn't she look... What's her name? She's got 3 names. Actual evil phrenology. Yeah, lich phrenology. Marla Singer. Yeah, Marla Singer.
The American people deserve answers, right? They deserve to know if this is a candidate that's being put in.
You know what she looks like? She looks like she's an AI video.
And Elizabeth Pipko,
she's too soft and fuzzy. Is it a vanity thing? Is she deliberately turned up the fuzz on her video to make it look like she has no pores?
Point?
He 100% has a point. Look, the American people deserve answers, right?
That
they deserve
looks
to
like
know
AI.
if this is a candidate that's being put in for the right reasons or not. And they also deserve to know if it's a candidate being chosen by them or being put in by this donor class, right? We have to ask ourselves, if Joe Biden had backed out of the race a couple of months ago and they had time, would they have had a Democratic primary? And would Kamala Harris even be the chosen pick of the American people? There's a lot the American people are owed here, and they're not getting any of those answers.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Love to see the January 6 people, we're a republic, not a democracy people, pretending they give a shit about the purported, like, lack of democracy in the Democratic primary. You know, people who literally are backing Project 2025, and they're like, yeah, I'm really concerned with, you know, we know Kamala Harris has higher favorability ratings than Joe Biden, and the donors immediately, like the regular, average, small time donors like fired up as soon as Kamala Harris got in, and we know that like there's a ton of energy now that she's been selected instead of Joe Biden as like the front runner candidate for the Democratic primary. But we as good faith participants are very concerned about the state of our democracy.
Steve Hilton, you know, I know you're in politics, and I know you know how important opposition research is. Do you think Republicans are just thinking, man,
Jack Posobiec's tweet to that effect. Right now, we do not have an elected leader running this country. The most powerful nation in the world is being run by bureaucrats and a shadow government. He means Jews, and he's been saying this for the entire time Joe Biden has been president. There's nothing new. There's no new information here, you know? Like how Elon Musk is dog whistling about the Jewish control of the government. You know, like, oh, George Soros is puppeteering the Democratic Party. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is literally the wealthiest man on earth who privately bought a social media company so that he could run it as a campaign apparatus for Donald Trump.
We have got some opposition research information on Kamala Harris to beat the band.
Well, look, I'm sure they've been doing that work. We know the Trump campaign has been preparing for this scenario, and there's a lot there, particularly from her record in California. I mean, I just looked up a piece and put it out on my social media today that I did when she was named vice president. This is 4 years ago on my show when I looked at her record. And when she was San Francisco district attorney, for example, she covered up child sexual abuse. She covered it up, and she brags about prosecuting sex offenders. She covered up one of the vilest crimes you could...
I think I vaguely remember this talking point from 4 years ago. I don't really care enough to get into it. If it's actually serious, then, like, it'll come up. Also, listen, okay? All right, here's the narrative. Kamala Harris regrets what she did that day, covering up the sex abuse. So now she's going after the kingmaker of pedophiles. Now that Epstein's dead, he's the #1 guy, Donald Trump. Cop versus robber, or cop versus pedophile.
Possibly.
And not only is this almost certainly a lie or misrepresented, because they always do. If they told the truth, why would they be Republicans? But also, this is her shot to go after the #1 pedophile, okay?
She sided with the people who were doing it, rather than with the victims who were begging her as DA to give them the information so they could mount a civil prosecution. She stood with the perpetrators instead of the victims. When she was Attorney General in California, she played a role in one of the most disastrous things that has destroyed our state. Jessica knows this incredibly well, of course. Proposition 47, right at the heart of all the chaos and crime and homelessness and drug addiction problems we have in California. That's what we need to focus on.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, Proposition 47 is the thing that gave people, if you want to go into any kind of store and you steal less than $950 worth of stuff, it is no longer a felony, and so they just...
Cool. That's great. I don't think that your entire life should be ruined because you stole, like, 1/10 of the daily salary of a tech worker in San Francisco's worth of stuff from a Target. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. Oh no, you stole, like, an iPhone. It's only a misdemeanor. I don't give a shit.
Steal at will. I'm wondering to you, Jessica, because, you know, Republicans, we mentioned that the Trump PAC has already dropped an ad against Kamala Harris. But there's a possibility, maybe it's not a huge possibility, but a very real possibility that in 3.5 weeks, Kamala Harris flames out and they've got to take on yet another opponent.
Wishful thinking. What possible evidence is there for her flaming out? You know that ever since she became VP, she's been, like, tapping her fingertips together every time Joe Biden coughs into a microphone.
They are very clearly still in disarray. And with so many that still have not endorsed Vice President Harris, it's pretty clear that this is not a done deal yet. And for all of the reasons that have been stated, her horrendous history here in California, they're going to be talking about her job as border czar. They're going to be talking about her war on American energy. These are all
war on American energy. It's crazy how the shit they say means literally nothing, you know?
issues that are really important to American voters right now. And California Democrats will be able to tell you just as well as anyone else in the country that she's not ready for prime time.
Yeah. Is there a vice presidential pick, Elizabeth Pipko, that...
Why do right-wingers hate California with a passion? Because it's by far the largest and most powerful state, and they can't stand the fact that it is, and that it's like vastly more so than Texas. And Texas is number 2. They can't stand that fact, so they pretend that the entire state is failing. Like, if you like go to any Bible Belt state, any like deep red Midwestern or Bible Belt state, and it's a shithole, an actual shithole. Go to Appalachia, go to the deep South, like actual decrepit, filthy, rotten shithole. But they don't talk about that because that's their voter base. Instead, they're like, oh, yeah, in San Francisco, one of the most wealthy and powerful like micro regions in the United States, there's like some homeless people on the ground, and there's like poop on the ground, and people steal stuff from cars. So it's like a third world country that has the economic power of a modern nation. Oh yeah, California on its own has like the 8th highest GDP in the world against any other country, you know, but like let's pretend that it's falling apart. They don't like California because California is doing better than basically any state they rep. Same with New York. They pretend New York City is a shithole rather than, I don't know, the city in the world. Like, New York City isn't just a big city, it's one of these cities. It's up there with London and Paris is as like capital T, the capital C city. It's massive. But they have to pretend that it's a shithole because, you know, when they're out there like, oh yeah, what's the biggest city in your state? Jacksonville? You know? Oh yeah, sure, okay man, doing great.
You're concerned about that could make Kamala Harris a viable threat?
There certainly is not. Look, Trace, I did not take this job just to take it. I can tell you right here, I would not have taken the job if Donald Trump was
5th biggest economy in the world. That's crazy. As a state. Did you know that if you break down like blue versus red districts by economic productivity, the divide between how much wealth blue regions of the country produce versus red regions is like astronomical? Like, the difference in wealth production, the difference in economic productivity between Republican and Democrat areas, so-called, is psychotic, you know? Because cities are the cities produce wealth, and cities are overwhelmingly blue, basically everywhere. Florida, Texas, doesn't matter where you are, you know? Cities are blue. Is there a map for that? Yeah, but I'm not going to go digging for it now.
was not the man on the ticket, because this is not a man and a ticket that you see every other race. This is an actual movement, and it's a movement that's gone up against the political machine that's wanted to take him out since he first announced that he was running for president in 2015. Every time they try to knock him down, he comes back stronger. There's absolutely no one that we fear. There's no one that Donald Trump fears.
She really does look like and talk like AI, doesn't she? She doesn't even enunciate anything. She's just talking in a perfectly flat tone. She's you know, self-consciously blurred her camera. She's very creepy.
Strongest he has been since he announced his run first in 2015, and we don't fear any candidate or any vice president that they can come up with.
And I wonder, Steve Hilton, if you look at her, the totality of Kamala Harris's record, how in the world does she navigate the border crisis? I mean, how?
Her jaw is huge. Hold on. We're not hating on queens with a clocky jawline, okay? That's not the point of this. I'm talking about, like, her overall vibe.
How in the world politically, because it's such a big issue. I mean, you can get the other stuff. Oh, that was in California, or she was getting, you know, she was helping bail out the George Floyd protesters and rioters and so forth. Oh, well, you know, it was, but the border is a big, big issue, and navigating around that is going to be tricky at best.
Right, it's the biggest, and it's the biggest liability for her in terms of her record, as Jessica was saying. And look, I mean, she's going to not want to talk about it. Before all this, they only had two arguments when it was Biden-Harris, basically abortion and democracy. They can't exactly use democracy now after what's happened. So she's going to...
They can't, they've lost that talk. Oh, blimey. They've lost the right to that talking point. Yeah, we want to completely destroy American democracy, but they chose a different candidate before the convention. So how can they do that?
To be going on about abortion, but just to pick up on what Jessica was saying, I mean, if you talk to California Democrats, as I have, about her, they can't stand her.
This is citation needed, as I have, you know, going by anecdote. My understanding is she's pretty popular in California.
The people who know her best think she's absolutely terrible.
Citation?
And then the defining problem with her, this is where the real argument needs to be made about the future, is that she's just like Joe Biden, a machine.
That's the best they've got, dude. They really do have nothing, man. They really do have nothing. Remember how when we were watching that bit from Tulsi Gabbard the other day, they were lambasting Kamala Harris for being too hard on crime? And here they're like, well, she wouldn't even give people felonies for stealing an iPhone. Okay, and there's well, she's just like Joe Biden. Okay.
Politician who will say anything, do anything, and that means she will pander to the left, just as Joe Biden did, and land us with the same disastrous set of policies on the border, on gas prices and the economics and the regulation and
this is one of the easiest ways to tell whether or not a person actually believes anything or has anything to say, or if they're just repeating talking points. What the does Kamala Harris have to do with gas prices? What are you talking about? What is the relationship between these facts? You're just saying shit. They're thought-terminating cliches. In the Republican mind, they're just trying to activate all of those, like, deeply carved, well-worn neural centers that they've dug, where you're meant to feel negatively about someone if they bring up words like climate or gas prices or border crisis or whatever.
Crime and all this far left stuff.
Nice
that
picture
whether she believes it or not, she will cave to the far left activists who really run the Democratic Party.
This is what they've got on her. Hey, did you know she laughs? Did you know Kamala here's some photos of Kamala Harris. Did you know she's full of whimsy and mirth? Did you know she's joyful?
These days.
It's an interesting point that Steve makes there, Jessica, because he's saying, you know, the bottom line here is that Joe Biden and that Kamala Harris will virtually say anything to help their. But, you know, when Joe Biden says something and he screws it up, you know, you write it off as, well, Joe Biden's always been a gaffe machine, or Joe Biden's getting older, or so forth. But when Kamala Harris messes something up, it is, I mean, the word salads that she's famous for.
What word salads is she famous for? The wheels in the bus go round and round. They do that, though. They do that. That is something they do.
It's harder to write those off as anything except for, you know, just not being great at communicating her message.
I actually think this is an IQ check. If her line, unburdened by all that has been, if that reads as word salad to you, I just think you're kind of like cognitively deficient. I just don't think you should have a driver's license, I guess. If you listen to that and you're thinking like, wow, that doesn't mean anything, I think that you lack the ability to process like very basic, like rhetorical, like anything even like vaguely flowery and like you wouldn't survive an 8th grade English class, you know? This ain't some ESL shit, okay? These are Fox News, like, pundits. These are talking heads.
Yeah, and the policies behind it. The messenger matters a lot less than the actual message, which is terrible. And
oh, hold on. Benjamin earning his first mute of the day. There we go. We are on the coconut train. Benjamin, you are going to get on it, or you're going to be left behind.
their policies have failed. They've failed Americans. We've seen it all through the last 3.5 years. And that's why Americans are ready for something new.
Yeah, and Elizabeth Pipko, to you, I'm just curious if you think that there's something that Republicans need to prepare for. Do you go with everything you have at Kamala Harris and think that she's the candidate, or do you kind of hold some of your, some weapons in your quiver so that you can go after somebody if that day should happen to come?
Oh man, they are so desperate. The wishful thinking is crazy. The idea that anyone has a chance of becoming the front runner other than Kamala Harris. They so desperately want it to be anyone else. They're begging, they're praying, they're on their hands and knees. Please, God, let it be Gavin Newsom. Let it be someone where we can immediately snap to a bunch of negative, let it be anyone. Let Hillary Clinton come by. Please, God. Have you seen this Jane Lindsay tweet about Kamala using devil chants? Yeah, I saw it. It's literally Kamala just saying yeah.
What can be, unburdened by what has been.
This phrase, which she repeats all the time, is not mysterious. It's esoteric. That is, it's a cult. It's a Marxist and Luciferian incantation, and that's easily seen. Peasant brain. James Lindsay is a phenomenally stupid man. He genuinely just isn't up with the curve. He's the guy who brags about the lies that he's been paid to tell and will explain how he's lying, and then get screenshotted for it and be used as an argument against. Why do you think the critical race theory cycle didn't last too long? It's because idiots like him were yeah, this is a bit of social engineering we engaged in, where critical race theory doesn't mean anything, but we lied about its meaning to make people angry, Peasant brain is all I can really say, Stick to throwing salt over your shoulder every time you knock a vase off a shelf.
The fact is we're not going against a candidate. We're going against a set of policies which have hurt the American people tremendously. That's something that actually most Americans on the left and the right agree with. If you're looking at these poll numbers, you can see that most people agree with the fact that this administration does not know what they're doing and does not know what's best for the American people. So no, there's nothing that we are worried about, nothing we have to prepare for that's outside the box. We know for a fact that right now Donald Trump is the man for the job. He's the man that the American people want, and it's something that both sides can now agree on.
Which is why he has favorability ratings of 30-35%.
Because she is incredibly unpopular, Joe Biden is incredibly unpopular, and it's because these policies simply do not work.
Yeah, I've got 30 seconds for you to wrap us up, Steve.
So a final thought, Trace, looking at Kamala Harris, California Democrats have never performed well in nationwide elections because they are too left-wing and they don't know how to talk to people.
The belief that California Democrats is too left-wing, another delusional invention of the Republican Party. I wish that California Democrats were anything like Wisconsin or Michigan Democrats, But alas, yeah, Dianne Feinstein, the epitome of left-wing virtue, Yeah, the average Midwestern Dem would call the average California Dem a class traitor and have them against a wall. The CA legislator were passing insanely good bills that were vetoed by Newsom. Yeah, because Gavin Newsom is a piece of shit motherfucker who's hedging his bets so that when he runs for the presidency, he can convince all the moderate Republicans that he's not as far left as Fox News will say he is. And then nothing will come of it, because obviously reality and what people who watch Fox News believe in don't really line up that well. Why are all Dems in the inner part of USA Leninist? Because the Dems in Michigan don't have to represent Los Angeles, Bel Air, Beverly Hills style bourgeois Democrats, and they don't have to represent Tech Valley Democrats either. Okay, they represent good old corn farming Democrats, as God intended. Getting closer and closer to Blue Dog Democrats or Wall Street Dems like New York, exactly.